Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm Nate Eaton. This is Courtroom Insider. So glad you are with me tonight. I'd love to know where you are watching from, by the way, no matter where you're at. If you can put it in the comments below. I always go through and read it and can't believe that we're reaching people in the UK or Australia or Italy or even, some places I've never heard of. But I appreciate you watching. Every week we take a look at different crimes, court cases, things like that are happening. Sometimes we go more than once a week and just talk about different things and have on different guests. And tonight, it's such a fascinating interview to me. This is a story that we all followed in 2012, when this horrific school shooting happened in Connecticut, in Newtown, Connecticut, at Sandy Hook Elementary School. And what you may not have followed as closely, although it has been in the news, is parents from that school in court suing because of what was said. Horrible, horrific, awful things that were said and televised to the world, and how that ended up in a courtroom and what happened. I have the father of an adorable little girl who was killed that day in her kindergarten class. Robbie Parker will be with me. I'll talk more about that in a moment. It's an interview that I hope you'll stay tuned for, because it is one that I'll remember for a long time, if not forever. Before we get to that, though, I want to update you a little bit on Kohberger and Lori Vallow. We have motions in both cases that have been filed. First, to Bryan Kohberger. The prosecutors filed a motion just 2 days ago saying that they intend to admit some evidence. And it's interesting the type of evidence that they're going to admit. This is directly from the motion. It says that they intend to present evidence of crimes, wrongs, or other acts, specifically video of a traffic stop that occurred on West Pullman Road, Farm Road in Moscow, Idaho on August 21st, 2022, involving Bryan Kohberger and Latah County Sheriff's Office Corporal Darren Duke. Citation was issued regarding the same traffic stop. The state intends to introduce this evidence for the purpose of proving defendant's identity, vehicle, address, and phone number. This issue has been previously addressed by the court in the December 15th, 2023 sealed order denying the motion to dismiss the indictment on grounds of a biased jury, inadmissible evidence, lack of sufficient evidence, and prosecutorial misconduct. So they're going to admit this traffic stop that happened way back in August of 2022, before the 4 students at the University of Idaho were killed, to prove, or at least try to prove, they say they're going to prove, that wrongdoing was committed, and also prove his Kohberger's identity, vehicle, address, and phone number. That's the only motion that's been filed here within the past week. We have not heard from the judge if the judge is going to deny the motion to dismiss the DNA evidence that was found through genealogy. We talked about that the past 2 weeks, so we're waiting to see how the judge will rule on that. And we'll see if other motions come in. I would imagine as we get closer and closer to jury selection in July and the trial in August, that more motions will be filed here. You've got to think, both the prosecutors and the defense, July may seem like a long ways away. It'll be here before we know it. They have to gear up for this trial and be ready for what is to come. All right, now to Arizona. Lori Vallow, her trial is next month. Can you believe it? It starts March 31st in Maricopa County. Lawyer Lori is representing herself. She is in charge. And she's filing motions. And she filed some this week. Well, she filed one as of now that we know of. I want to read you one, though, that was filed before she filed hers. And this was the prosecutors filing it, and it has to do with the media. This is the state's requested limitations regarding a Court TV media request. Let me stop there. Court TV filed a camera request to have a camera in the courtroom during the trial. And often how this works normally, when during these cases, how it worked in Idaho, we file a camera request and ask the judge to allow us being the media collectively, to have a camera in the courtroom. In Idaho, the judge can say yes, but you need to pool your video, meaning one camera and all the media need to share the footage. And we work that out amongst ourselves. Sometimes we have to show up and plug in our gear, our equipment into whoever is the pool, and we stream it that way. Sometimes it goes out on one YouTube feed or a video feed that we then take. It all depends. It's much easier in a lot of these cases to have somebody like Court TV, a national outlet, be the pool, because we're small. Like East Idaho News, in our newsroom, we've got 10 people. And if we were going to be the pool camera for a large trial, a long trial, it would require at least, at the minimum, 3 of us. Most likely 4, maybe 5. That's half our staff. Court TV does this as their job every day. This is what they do. Law and Crime does the same thing. So basically, Court TV filed a motion in Arizona saying we would like to carry the trial. Set up our camera, maybe 2 cameras. It all depends on what the judge allows. Set up the pool feed, share with the media. They don't charge us. We show up and we plug in, and they provide it as a service to all the media. Now, many of you, I know during court proceedings, will write us and say, the audio's horrible sometimes. Fix the audio. The video looks horrible. Why are you showing the back of our heads? Like in Arizona. So far, Lori, the judge has allowed a camera in, but he has not allowed live streaming. And he has told us where to sit. And it hasn't been us, it's been Fox in Phoenix. They're the ones that have sent their cameraman, set up, and the judges said, you stand there. That's why we see the back of Lori's head. Whereas other judges will say, hey, I've had judges in other cases that I've shown up, and they'll say, hey, come and set up in the jury box. Not when jurors are in there, but you can show anything you want. It all depends on the judge. So Court TV filed a motion asking to be the pool, asking to broadcast the trial and allow it to be live fed or at least videotaped. The prosecution late last week, filed a motion in response to Court TV. This is what it says. The state of Arizona, through undersigned counsel, was advised on January 24th that Court TV submitted a request to the Maricopa County Superior Court to live stream the trial for these cases on the web and to distribute the live stream. The state does not object to cameras in the courtroom during the trial, but requests the court preclude any media filming, photographing, or recording these trials during jury selection. The presence of media filming, photographing, or recording during voir dire may inhibit jurors from expressing their honest opinions and could result in a jury that is not impartial. The state also requests the court preclude the trial from being live streamed. If the media accidentally films a juror or any conversations at the bench while live streaming, Court TV would not be able to stop the public from seeing the juror or hearing those conversations. If the trial is not live streamed, Court TV would have time to redact anything that was inappropriately recorded before airing it for the public to view. The judge hasn't ruled on this. What this could mean, if the judge does grant it, is that he institutes a delay. And it could probably be like a 30-minute delay, maybe an hour delay, or maybe a 3-hour delay, whatever he decides, where that gives enough cushion if something is inadvertently filmed that they can be there. And so if the judge does grant this motion and says, okay, Court TV, you can film, but there needs to be a delay with a 30-minute window, what we would do is we're going to live stream the trial, assuming he grants it. We would plug in, and then after 30 minutes, we would take the delay. So there might be a bit of a delay. We'll see. But the interesting motion is Lori Daybell responded to this motion. This one is typed. It's not handwritten. So she must have gotten with her advisory council and asked them to type this out. She's not happy with Court TV. The defense objects to Court TV's request in its entirety because of the bias they have already created in the community. Namely, Lori Daybell and her husband Chad Daybell are the commercial for Court TV. That commercial runs constantly throughout the day and has falsely characterized, libeled, and slandered the defendants. Court TV should be ashamed of its very nature and its request, since its sole objective is not to bring people real news or facts, but instead, its objective is to entertain the public with the very true life tragedies that happen in real people's lives. The defense objects to Court TV being allowed by this court to participate in this judicial process, including their specific request to appear at trial, live stream the proceedings on the web, and distribute the live feed. Dated this January 31st, 2025, Lori Daybell. So Lori is not happy with Court TV. The main question I had is, how does she know what Court TV is showing? I don't know. I don't think they have cable in the jail. I know that she has likely been shown like the Netflix series documentary and the Datelines and some other things before her Idaho trial. And she's probably been shown some things on court TV. But I can tell you for a fact that court TV is not, as she says, running commercials constantly throughout the day about Chad and Lori. They've probably run promotions or ads, but I don't know. So we'll see. I'd be interested to see if Court TV responds. I think they might. I think if this was like East Idaho News, we would respond, not to her, but to the court and say, just so you know, Judge, this is, we're coming in to act. We're the eyes and ears of the public. We're the eyes and ears of you. And you can't just ban a media outlet with something like this unless there's really, really big cause. So anyway, that's where things stand with Lori Daybell. We'll see what the judge rules, how he decides on this. Okay, now to my guest for tonight. This is a story that I will never forget. It was December of 2012, and I remember I was getting ready for work, and I got a message that there had been a mass shooting at a school in Connecticut, an elementary school. And I was shocked, and then I got to work, and on all the TVs, it was wall-to-wall coverage. And I was working in Richmond, Virginia at the time, and my news director, we decided that I would go and interview a counselor on how to talk to your kids about these tragedies. But before that, it was our company holiday party. And in the lobby of our building, it was a fairly big lobby. They had brought in food, and there was some raffle prizes and gifts. And, it was a Friday. It was supposed to be a real festive thing. And I remember walking in the lobby, and there's this food and everybody's there. And I look over at the monitors. There were TV monitors on our lobby wall, and all of them with all the different networks, and all of them were showing this massacre at an elementary school in Connecticut. And it just was such a weird juxtaposition to be at this party and seeing that. I didn't have kids of my own at the time, but my wife was pregnant with our first. And so I didn't quite fully understand what it would be like to be the parent of a child who's killed days before Christmas, especially, in kindergarten. And we learned over the next few days just how horrific this tragedy was. And I remember the next day I think I was watching CNN in the evening when a news conference came on with the father of one of the girls who was killed. And it was Robbie Parker. And he stood up at the microphones and he gave a very touching tribute to his daughter, Emilie. And Emilie was in her classroom that day. In fact, before she had gone to school, they had decided as a family to do a service project and collect toys for needy children in need. And after school that day or that weekend, they were going to take this box of toys and give it away. And that morning, Robbie had poked his head into his daughter's room, and they were learning Portuguese, I believe. And they were talking to each other in Portuguese. And he said, all right, love you. Goodbye, going to work. They had just lived in Newtown, Connecticut, a few months. He was working as a physician's assistant at a hospital, and they had just moved there. They were fairly new to the community. And he's at work, and he gets a voicemail on his phone that says there's been a shooting at a school in the district. It didn't give specifics. And he said, that's our school district. And then his wife called right away, and they said, surely it wouldn't be Sandy Hook, like the elementary school. And I believe he said his wife, Alyssa, was already on the way to the school. And he was at the hospital, went into lockdown mode because they were expecting victims to be brought in. He couldn't leave the hospital to go see. And finally, he just had this feeling, I got to go. I got to get there. And he was able to leave the hospital, and he gets there, and they had all the parents in this firehouse. And they're in there, and the officials are kind of coming and going, but there's not much news. And his wife, Alyssa, says something to the effect of, do you think she's dead? He says, no, no way. Not our 6-year-old daughter. No way, not Emilie. They had 3 daughters. And several hours later, they said they learned that she had been shot to death in her classroom. 26 people killed in that school. 20 students who were 6 and 7. And I have a kindergartner now. I was just today at their school for a little class play. I cannot imagine. Robbie and Alyssa bolted from that fire station, and this picture was taken of them. So imagine going through that, going home. He sat in his daughter's bedroom that night in a quiet house, and her bed's empty. She's not there. And 2 of his best friends called and said, we know that Robbie had roots in Utah, and they didn't have any family in Connecticut. And so they had to transport Emilie's body from Connecticut to Utah to be buried. And so his friends said, we're going to set up, at the time, it wasn't a GoFundMe. I don't think GoFundMe was around, but an online memorial page, and maybe raise some money so that you guys can afford to all come back and bring her body. And Robbie said, okay, that's fine. So they set up this memorial page, and as they set up this page, Robbie said that he would turn to it for comfort, to read stories about his daughter that he didn't know about, or kind phrases, or sympathies, whatever. His old teachers that taught him were leaving messages. And then ugly, ugly, ugly statements started to appear. Horrible statements, such as, effing liar, your daughter ain't dead. Another, Viva Second Amendment, try and take my guns, but watch your back because we're coming for you. And on and on and on and on for years. And it was because of a radio host named Alex Jones, who went on the air the day after the shooting. I say on the air. He had a radio show, but he also had a website with millions of followers and social media. And he went on and he said that Sandy Hook didn't happen. Emilie wasn't murdered. Robbie was a crisis actor. And this was a hoax, a government hoax. And he repeated the lies on and on and on. What ends up happening is Robbie and a bunch of parents, other parents from Sandy Hook, decide they're going to sue Alex Jones. And they won. 2, I believe there was a lawsuit in Texas and one in Connecticut. They won, and they were awarded nearly $1 billion. And it's been upheld on appeal after appeal after appeal. It's been upheld. Now, we'll talk in this interview. You'll hear him talk about this was never about the money. It was never about the money. It was about restoring the truth of his daughter. And now Robbie has written a new book. It's called A Father's Fight, Taking on Alex Jones and Reclaiming the Truth About Sandy Hook. Here is my conversation with Robbie Parker. What made you, first of all, decide to join in on the lawsuit, or was it your idea?
No, it wasn't my idea. That was not something that was on my radar. There's a lot of steps to get to that process. Dealing with the conspiracy theory people immediately after Sandy Hook happened, like immediately after my daughter died. Alex Jones was already on his show spreading lies, spreading this conspiracy that this was all a fake thing and that I was in cahoots with the government. So I started getting attacked by conspiracy theorists very early on. And so, and we had just lost Emilie. Like I hadn't even been able to wrap my head around that yet. And so they weren't people I was wanting to engage directly with, you know what I mean? And so it took a lot of steps for me to get to a point where I felt like the lawsuit was necessary, and then even me joining the lawsuit. And some of those were the fact that over the years between 2012, when the shooting happened, until 2018, when I joined the lawsuit, you just saw that these things just continued. They didn't go away. I kind of thought like if I just kept my head down, didn't engage, that they would eventually just move on, and they never really did. It just got worse and worse. And then when I started to see the impacts that it had on other people, because other shootings happened and conspiracy people went after them, and then really started to see the toll that it had on my family and on myself, then that's when I decided that it was the best thing for me and my family to actually join the lawsuit and to fight the conspiracy theorists versus feeling like my silence was protecting them.
In a way, though, I would imagine you're thinking if I join in the lawsuit, it's going to bring more publicity to you, your family. And did you think this is just going to drag out, like rather than then go away? Or is it we got to stop it now so that it does go away?
Right. Yeah. I mean, both trains of thought, right? So the first one was, I don't have the mental capacity or energy to deal with these people directly, right? I just wanted to grieve and I just wanted to like be there for my family. And we just wanted to just be together, right? And grieve and miss Emilie and go through that process. And these people were robbing us of that ability to do so. And so for years, I did take the approach. I'm gonna just ignore them. I'm gonna like not pay attention. I'm gonna pretend that it's not having an impact on me. And then I saw how that was impacting myself. Like I gave up my power. I lost my voice. I like um by not admitting that these things were impacting me, I wasn't aware of like all the negative repercussions it was having on me and my family. And so
Mhm.
there was an instance with Madeline. I'd already found out that the lawsuits were filed, and I had been asked to join, and I hadn't. I didn't have any intention of joining. Madeline and I, we were out as a family. We pulled into like a Wendy's. We were gonna get like Frosties for the girls or something, and we opened up the doors, and Madeline wasn't getting out of the car. And I asked her what's up, and she looked, I don't know, she looked off. And she was like, that car has an InfoWars bumper sticker on it.
Mhm.
And so I paused and she was like, isn't that the guy that bullies you? Isn't that the guy that says mean things about Emilie and says things about hurting us? And I was like, yeah, that's Alex Jones's company. And so in InfoWars. And so she's like, well, I don't want to go inside if someone's going to recognize you and bullies you. And she was scared.
Mhm.
And I thought that what I was doing by staying silent and keeping the conspiracy people over there and trying to keep my family over here was protecting her from that. And I saw in that moment that it absolutely wasn't. And
And how
so
old was she?
let's see, that would have been 2018. So she was 10. Yeah. And so I realized then that like everything that I had been doing wasn't working. And it was actually what I was trying to protect them from. I wasn't.
Right.
And she also had seen ways in which we had fought for Emilie and done things in Emilie's memory. And I wasn't sure in that moment if she knew that I would do the same for her. And
Right.
so that was one of the big catalysts that finally got me to want to join.
I don't know if people realize just how ugly a lot of this stuff was. You write that while you're waiting at the firehouse to know if your daughter's been shot or if she's alive, from his InfoWars studio in Austin, Texas, Alex Jones is online claiming that the shooting was fake. It was staged. It wasn't real. Don't ever think this couldn't be staged, he said. I told you they were going to come for our guns, look for mass shootings, and then magically it happens. They are coming. They are coming. They are coming. They're declaring war on the Second Amendment, period. And that's when his audience is getting whipped into a fury. As you mentioned, you're just trying to find out if your daughter's dead or alive. And then what touched me in reading the book is you talk about your two friends, I believe it was your two buddies from childhood that call you and say, we want to set up a fundraiser so that you guys can fly back to Utah for the funeral. And is that when you first realized when you went on that fundraising page just to see the comments that the angry vitriol started to seep in?
Yeah, I mean that was the avenue, right? So what happened, yeah, they set up this Facebook page, they set up this memorial page, and their intent was just like, we can get some of our high school friends to donate money. They wanted to help get Emilie to Utah. We didn't have roots in Connecticut or anything like that, and they knew that that's where we would probably want to bury Emilie, where we're from. And so that's what they were trying to just raise a few bucks to help us just transport Emilie's body to Utah for a burial. And and the memorial page ended up being like a really important thing for me and just finding some solace in those first few days because there was people who knew Emilie. We had traveled around the country for different jobs and my schooling and stuff, and people were sharing their memories and things I had never heard about from her, right? Like people had memories and experiences with her that I didn't know about. So it was a really sweet place to go to. And then within days of the shooting, the conspiracy people found out about that and they just inundated that memorial page with the most vile hatred, awful stuff to the point where at one point we had to shut the page down for a while because it was just too much to try and keep them off of it.
Like, effing liar, your daughter ain't dead. Viva Second Amendment, try and take my guns, but watch your back. We're coming for you. So they're threatening you on your daughter's memorial page.
They're threatening me on there. I was getting calls. I was getting letters to my house. I was getting calls to my work, my personal email. It was coming from all sides. Yeah.
And I remember the day of this shooting. I was working in Richmond, Virginia, and our company was having a Christmas party. And it was in the lobby of our TV station. And there on the TV is the horrific footage of what's happening in Connecticut, where you're at. And we're having this Christmas party. It seemed so surreal. And then I remember a day or so later, or a few days later, you holding the news conference to talk about this. And maybe describe for people how that news conference came about, because that was one of the things. Didn't Alex Jones attack you because you had held that news conference? Maybe describe to people what the media frenzy was like at the moment.
Right. It was actually the very next day that I felt like I needed to make a statement because the authorities were being very they weren't releasing a lot of information. They were doing their investigation and stuff like that. So the media was going in my mind, like just how they were. I mean, they were berserk, right? They're ravenous. They're trying to get information. They want to be the first out to report something. And so we were getting inundated because people, as I told family and friends about what happened, and they would post it on social media, and then their friends would put, it started getting shared like that. So that's how media was able to kind of find us. And so from the night of the shooting into Saturday morning, the shooting was on a Friday, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, we were just getting inundated with phone calls, people coming to our house. And they were also like contacting my friends and family. And it got to the point where I felt like if anybody's going to say anything about Emilie, it needs to come from her parents. And I wanted to make sure I did it. My idea was if I gave a statement and I did it to the news on television, they wouldn't be able to misconstrue my words. I wouldn't, it wouldn't be like this, an interview where somebody could, just take part of what I said. So that was like my idea. And I thought if I can just throw them a bone, like they'll leave us alone and then we can just focus on what we need to focus on. And so, yeah, so that happened Saturday evening. And Alex Jones picked up on this moment where I was nervous and I didn't really know what to expect. This whole thing didn't turn out anywhere what I expected. I thought I was going to talk to one person with one camera, and I show up and the entire news force, like, I mean, it was like everybody like was there, and I wasn't expecting that.
And
So
I
I had
think
this like,
I think they covered it live. I think I remember watching it live, right? Like,
Mhm.
you're there, having never been in the media spotlight, I'm assuming.
No,
Still grieving your
no,
daughter. You walk out the doors of a building and this parking lot is full of every news organization imaginable.
yeah, and it
And
was
so,
like pitch black and like
right.
the bright lights. Like I couldn't even tell what was going on. I didn't really know who was there, and I had no idea what was going on live. Yeah, exactly.
And so you kind of do a nervous laugh, right?
Mhm. Exactly.
As many of us do in uncomfortable or new situations. You kind of do a nervous laugh, and then you read the statement about your daughter. And that's one of the examples where Alex accused you of being an like
Mhm. Exactly. So, and that's a really nefarious, like it sounds kind of weird, right? It sounds lame, like I'm part of like some improv group or something. Like he's a crisis actor. But in the conspiracy world, you learn that's a really strong code. What that means is these are people that are in cahoots with the government. They are ones that are planning. He's part of the elite. He's part of the Illuminati, whatever he says. He says all these things. But my purpose is I'm going to come after your guns. I'm doing this because I want to be a part of the community that's trying to take away your guns, something that's very important to a lot of people. And the reason that that's so dangerous is because, I mean, let's think about this for a second. The day before, there was this man in our community. I had no idea who he was. He had no idea who I was. He didn't know who Emilie was. But he did the most vile thing that you could do to another human being, right? He goes into an elementary school and he like ruthlessly murders 6-year-old children. So I'm now aware exactly what one human is capable of doing to another one. He has no reason to hate me. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know who Emilie is. But Alex Jones is now on his air, making me a vile person that you should hate, that you should need to defend yourself from because he's out trying to take away your rights and he put a target on my back. So the feeling of threat and the risk was very, very real. I like this shooter had no idea who I was. He didn't hate us, but these people did, and they are willing to fight for what they believe in. And so that's a really scary place to be.
Yeah, I mean, how long were you living in fear?
Um, it still exists, right? I still am aware of my surroundings when I go out in public. I'm still leery of people that try and contact me who, if I don't know who they are or come up to me. And so that it's always going to be there to some extent. I've been able to take a lot of power back. That's why even the title of the book is about reclaiming the truth. And there's a lot about my own personal power and my own being and self and who I am that I had to reclaim. And so I don't live in fear totally, but I have to be aware of it. And I definitely have to still feel like I need to protect myself and my family.
So you and some of the other families of parents of children who were killed decide we need to do something. We need to take legal action to get Alex Jones to stop saying these things. And we know how the court system works. It's just a grinding halt, it seems. It moves so slow. But the day comes for you to walk into the courtroom, and I believe you said, in the first chapter, you wondered if he would even show up to court. But he did. I don't know if he did. He show up on the first day. He did show up a few days, and didn't he actually have to take the stand?
Yeah, so he would do this thing where he would show up to the courthouse, but he wouldn't come in. So he would fly from Texas to Connecticut. He'd get on this private jet. He'd show up. He'd hold this press conference, and it really bothered me how much the media was just there, just ready to just soak up everything he said, right? So they were giving him this platform where he could just talk about how this is un-American and this is a show trial and just say all these horrible things, right? But he never had the guts to come into the courtroom. He never had the guts to come in and hear the testimonies of the families that he had hurt. Not until the day that he was forced to testify did he ever come into the courtroom. And then he was supposed to come back for another day. He was supposed to come back when his lawyer was going to call him to the stand, and he couldn't do it. And so he would hold these press conferences outside. He did that. I mean, in the 4 weeks of the trial, he did that at least 2 or 3 times a week, if not more. But he only came into the courthouse. He only came in to face what it was that he had actually done once.
And that time that he was on the stand, is that when he admitted that what he said was not true?
He had said that, so there was two trials. There's one in Texas and one in Connecticut.
Okay.
So in Texas, which was before our trial in Connecticut, he took a very different approach. He took this like, geez, I don't know. Like I was just trying to report things. I was hearing things like, I was playing devil's advocate. He's trying to be this like really kind of nice like guy and apologetic. And he was like, no, now I understand that it was 100% real, but I have the right to say what I want to say, kind of a thing. In Connecticut, he was very different. He was very bombastic. He was very argumentative and very much on trying to be on the offense. So, we didn't get the same Alex Jones in the two different trials.
Did you ever talk to him one on one?
No, that never happened. And then even the day that I testified, right? Like you think about like this like big John Grisham like movie moment of like me being on the stand and he's there and I get to tell my truth and he didn't have the courage to be there to hear any testimony from any of the families. But what I did get from his testimony, those were the two most powerful points in the trial for me was when he testified and when I testified. And when he testified, so that press conference that he used over and over and over, like he would play that. He showed that on his show all the time for years and years and years. Whenever there would be another shooting, he would be talking about another shooting, but he would have my clip like rolling in the background. And so my lawyer asked him like, "Did you ever watch his statement? Do you ever really know what he said?" And he had to admit that he didn't. And so I think this was just like an audible play that my lawyer did. He was like, "Well, we're gonna watch it." And he made Alex Jones sit there and watch my entire statement. And he got to hear about how much I love my daughter and how much we're gonna miss her and what I felt like the world was missing because she was taken from us. And he couldn't even watch it. There's cameras all over. I mean, there's TV screens all over in the courtroom. There's one right in front of him, to his left and to his right, right. And he couldn't avoid it, so he just put his head down and he couldn't even watch it. And in that moment, I knew that like it was never his, that was always mine, and I was able to take that power back from him, and I was able to kind of reclaim that in that moment. So that was a really powerful moment for me. And then the
Wow.
other one was when I got done testifying and I was able to walk off the stand because I finally knew that I had accomplished everything that I had set out to do.
You had by testifying and saying what you wanted to say.
Yeah, I had been silent for years at that point, right? I mean, we were talking like 10 years that I hadn't addressed anybody directly. There was, well, in the book I do talk about one conspiracy theorist that he and I got in a little bit of an altercation on the street one time. And so but I never had a chance to like really express my truth, right? Alex Jones has millions of followers. He has tens of millions of dollars. Like, who am I? I have nothing to try and like get my voice out there. And so that was my moment to be able to do that.
Didn't your wife take the stand too?
Yeah, she did. That would be okay. I said there was like two powerful moments. I don't know. Like hers
Maybe
was,
three more. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, like 1A and 1B or something like that. Because
Right.
my wife, when she took the stand, she's strong, she's beautiful, she's articulate, and I got to see what this was like through her eyes, and I'd only experienced my version of it, and I never really got a chance to understand what it was like from somebody that cared about me and loved me, and like how scared she was for her family and for me. And so that was one of the most emotional experiences that I've had in our marriage, as far as like being able to see her and understand her in that way. Yeah.
Right. I remember the day that the verdict came down, the camera panned over to you. You were on a row, I think, with other parents. And didn't you break down crying?
Yeah, that was I didn't know what to expect. I didn't, this was never about the money, right? Like, I mean, that's just the only avenue you have to hold somebody accountable. And so to sue them. And so and again, I really felt like I felt great in that moment because I was like, I've already done what I needed to do. I was able to speak my truth, find myself again, like reclaim my voice, and like I'm standing up for my family. But the jury verdict when it came in was just such a strong validation of really what the harm was that he did, and not just to Sandy Hook families. I mean, Alex Jones is somebody that has gone from the fringes all the way down into the mainstream, right? I mean, he's on the president's Rolodex of people to talk to and things like that. So he holds a tremendous amount of power, and the things that he does inflicts so many people more than just Sandy Hook families.
Did he ever apologize?
No. He that's one thing in court that he was going on and on about was like he's like I'm done apologizing and all this kind of stuff, and he got in this really contentious back and forth with my lawyer about it. But no, he's never really apologized. He's never taken accountability. And so anybody that knows what a real sincere heartfelt apology means and feels, no, he's never done that.
You mentioned, it wasn't about the money. It was about addressing the truth, getting the truth out there and, owning your voice, your story, your experience. Um, didn't, where does it stand now? Where does the case stand now? Because it seems like you hear that he said he didn't have any money and then the company went bankrupt. And where do things stand today?
Yeah, I mean, and the size of the verdict is like it's amazing, right? And again, it's just a symbol of like the harm that he's done. So no, he doesn't have $1 billion to pay the Sandy Hook families what he was ordered to pay, which has stood up on appeal, by the way.
It
And so
has.
yeah, yeah. The
Was it
Connecticut
literally 1 billion?
in Connecticut, just the punitive damages were 965 million. Then punitive damages took it up to close to 1.4 billion, plus the verdicts coming out of Texas. And so yeah,
Wow.
the Connecticut appellate court upheld the jury's ruling, and so and what he did was malicious and intentional. And so even the bankruptcy judge, when he filed bankruptcy, the judge said you can't use bankruptcy to get out of this debt because it was malicious and intentional what you did. So you can't get solace from the bankruptcy system. But he doesn't have $1 billion, so we have to go through this fight of liquidating his business, selling his business off. The Onion, the satirical news outlet, made a winning bid, but the judge had to block that for whatever reason that I don't really understand. So we're still in the process of figuring all that out. And
Mm.
so there will be money coming. Lawyers have to get paid off. Other people have to get paid off. So there'll be some things that trickle down because everybody's, for whatever reason, wants to know, like, are you going to get anything? And that will happen in some form. I don't know when or where, how much, but that doesn't matter.
Right. Um, Tell me what I don't, hopefully no other family has to go through this, but what advice would you give to them? Like, what have you learned from all this? That's a really big question, and the whole book addresses that. But what would you say is like the one or two takeaways that you've had?
Yeah, the first thing is just, I mean, I'll just, it's easier for me to answer that in just the context of grief, right? Like my story is so unique and big and out there, right? And it's a lot, people feel like they can't really wrap their head around it, or they feel like they might not be able to understand what it is I've been through. But really, the hardest thing that you've been through is the hardest thing you've been through. So there is really no comparison. And what I found in the power in sharing my story is that when I have shared it, other people feel like they're now safe to be able to be vulnerable and open up and tell me what's been the hardest thing in their life. And in that moment, you and I can be on the same page because we have an emotional connection between what it is that we're experiencing, right? And so even though our experiences may be different, we all have the same bucket of emotions to use to work through it. And so I can understand to a degree what somebody else has been going through, even if I've never done it, and vice versa.
Mm.
So advice that I give is just, especially with grief, you can grieve the loss of a loved one, you can grieve the diagnosis, you can grieve um, a dream job that you've lost or whatever, right? And it's a really, I feel like grief is a very sacred process. It's something that really challenges you as a person. You get to find out things about you that you didn't know you were capable of. And so it's hard and it's scary, but it is rewarding. And if you can sit with somebody that's going through something tough and you have to cross over that threshold from your comfort zone into discomfort for a little bit and just sit there with them, it's amazing how much you'll be able to grow and experience. And that process is very, very beautiful. And I don't look at grief as like I used to look at it like this character that I was fighting, right? And I now look at grief as a mentor and a friend because of how much it's been able to teach me. So I would
Mm.
just really challenge people to embrace that process. And even though it's scary and it feels like you're alone, you can reach out, you can use your voice to connect with other people, and you'll be amazed at who you get to meet and how you can help other people and yourself.
Right. That's such a good point. I often would think, if I had been one of those reporters knocking on your door 2 or 3 days after, and you did agree to talk to me, I don't know what I would say. Or if you were my friend and I wouldn't know what to say. I think a lot of people just say, I don't know what to say. How do you console someone whose daughter's just been murdered a few days before Christmas? So what do you say to those people that don't know what to say?
Yeah. Just be like exactly that, right? Just admit like we feel this pressure that like we need to show up or like be something for somebody or be strong for them or something like that. All they really need is just somebody to just sit with them. And they know that you don't understand, right? And any attempt to try and give a silver lining or some platitude or something like I love people and I love how well intended they are, but there's a lot of people that have said some very well intended things that were very, very hurtful, right? And I've done the same thing even many times since Sandy Hook, right? And this is a process I'm learning too, so it's hard for me to give advice on. But yeah, but just admitting like I don't know what it feels like to like where you're at right now, but I want you to know that like I'm here for you. I'm a safe person to talk to, and then back that up. That would be the most important thing that you could do, I think.
What have you learned about the media, working with the media?
It's a lot different when you have a book come out versus being in the focus of a national tragedy. But
Right.
no, so I've my opinions about working with the media have calmed down a little bit. I didn't like the bait and switch things that they would do, like, oh, we'll do this and we'll say this about, your nonprofit or anything like that, and then those kinds of things. But no, especially like in the last couple of months, I've done a number of interviews for the book, and everybody's been very sincere and kind and wonderful, and people like yourself that have taken the time to read the book. That's very touching to me, and I really appreciate it.
Well, I'll admit I haven't read it all. I just started last night, but I'm 60 or 70 pages in. And so, but I am going to read the whole thing. What advice would you have for somebody who is in the midst of a horrible tragedy and has to have deal with the media or has reporters knocking on their door? You thought at that press conference there'd be one reporter, one camera, and it would go out to everybody, but that wasn't the story. What would you say to them, to other people?
Yeah, yeah. So recognizing just like what the job of a media person is, right? They're there to get that information. They're there to share it, and they're very well meaning and they're nice, but ultimately they're not actually looking out for you to do their job, right? And so you don't owe them anything. There is kind of like this pressure where you feel like they keep coming and they keep coming. And you feel like this pressure to say something. If you're not comfortable doing that, there's no reason that you have to do that. You can designate somebody in your family to be a spokesperson if you want, and if that's the way you want to handle it, that's fine. But there's no obligation, and it's not rude if somebody that you didn't invite comes to your door, to not answer the door or to politely decline an interview. That goes against like our nature. We want to be receptive to other people, but it's okay if you don't. And so there was another Sandy Hook mom. We were in this like grief group this one time, and people would just people were like awesome, and like people just show up at my door and just hand me like, this chicken casserole. And and some people like would want to like talk. And she was like, I just don't have the energy to talk to anybody. I just, that's very nice. I can take their food, but I don't want to invite them in. I don't want to talk. And I was just like, you don't have to. She's like, okay, I'll tell them next time. Robbie Parker told me I don't have to let you in. And I was like, if that's what you need to do, that's fine. But yeah.
Right, right. I do think, though, you were smart in a way to hold a news conference in one spot with as many people as showed up to kind of, as you mentioned in the book, you wanted to kind of do it one time and be done, but then the next morning, Good Morning America's calling, and they won't let up, but at least you can do it in the one spot and be done with it. But I don't know. I thought that was good. But that's one of the things that I'll try to tell people is have a family spokesperson or someone that you can give phone, like call them, contact them, call them, and let them be your shield fielding all those requests.
Mhm. Yeah. And for me, the reason, another thing is that I didn't want somebody that's like, they were getting to this place where they were contacting like friends of friends, right? Because somebody had posted something on social media. I didn't want somebody that didn't know Emilie saying
Right,
something about her or my family. I didn't want some person that I sat next to in like sophomore English class to be
right,
like, yeah, I know Robbie. And I was like, that was it's 12 years ago. Like, you don't know me now, right?
right,
I didn't want something like that getting out to and say something that I couldn't take back, right?
right.
So I did that, and things happened that I couldn't take back, but that was on me, and I was able to work and reclaim that. I wouldn't be able to do that for somebody else. So yeah.
Right. You paint a really sad but beautiful picture talking about how the day that you went home, you and your wife, after the day of the shooting, going into Emilie's room and sitting on the floor and just the room's empty. She's not there other than all of her belongings and stuff. I mean, is it hard to go back and think about those moments? Is it therapeutic? How do you decide what to share and what to maybe keep private?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of things that are private. It feels weird. I'm like, I wrote this book and I want to share that, and I'm sharing things that I've been able to work through and process, and things that I found like important in my healing journey, and hopefully other people can relate. Um, Another thing that I found cathartic about going through the book and even like going through the trial, like I thought I knew what to expect. Like when Alyssa took the stand, when my wife Alyssa took the stand, I felt like I knew what to expect, right? Because I had lived this, we had lived this together. And she showed me a different version, and she showed me layers of what was happening that I had never seen before. And as I started to revisit things in writing and going through these things, again, I thought like, oh, I'll be able to bust this chapter out in a couple days or whatever. And it was a lot harder because all of a sudden, because I have been healing and I have been going through that grief process, there's always another layer that you get to of something that means something different now that you have better understanding. You have hindsight now that you can apply. You have experiences with other people that you can apply. And so there's always something to learn, and there's always a way to grow.
Hmm. Emilie would be how old today?
She would be 18. She would have graduated last year. Her sisters they're a junior and sophomore. So yeah, so they're 16 and 17 now. But
Jeez, that's wild to think about. I mean, I'm sure there's every single day where you wonder what she'd be doing if she were here today.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. And when it comes to like those anniversaries, right? Like her birthday or the anniversary of the shooting and stuff that come up, there was a time where we felt like we knew what to do to kind of honor her. And it gets tricky now because I don't know exactly what she would be doing or what she would be into, right? And so it gets tricky, but there's also an opportunity to still connect with her and with her sisters and everything. So
Do her sisters remember her?
absolutely. Yeah. Everybody talks about how the challenge of having all these kids like very close together. And I will say all of our kids were planned, but they weren't planned in that way, maybe. But what was lovely about that is, yeah, there was times, even Samantha was 3.5 when Emilie died. But there was times after the shooting where she would be sharing experiences that these weren't like implanted memories, right? They weren't stories that we had been telling. She was talking about very real experience that she had with Emilie on a one-on-one basis that, again, I wasn't aware of, or her mom wasn't aware of. So yeah, they definitely have their own relationship and their own grieving process because of that, because Emilie meant something different to everybody that knew her. So everybody's grief process is different.
now that it's the trial's over, are you still getting harassed or, has it calmed down?
I mean, anytime I put myself out there, right? So like doing interviews like this, like if I'm sure if I were to look up um podcasts that I've been on or read things that I've, that have been said about me, I'm sure in the comment sections there's going to be things in there that's never really going to stop or go away. But again, I have a different approach. I'm not living in that fear anymore. I have a respectful amount of fear for what it is that I'm doing and calculate those things, but it's different. And when I do come across it, it means something different to me and I handle it differently.
Hmm. But it's not like on a national platform. I mean, obviously, Alex Jones isn't saying anything anymore about this. That's kind of moved away. It's kind of gone away.
And that was one of the big things, right? Is yeah, we want to stop Alex Jones and we want to make it very hard for him to do what he does. And then anybody else that wants to think that they can fill in a void that Alex Jones may leave or try and one up Alex Jones, there's a very strong message out there that won't turn out well for you. It wouldn't be in your best interest to try and do that.
Right. How are you guys doing today? I mean, like I said, the trial's over, the court proceedings are done. It's been over 12 years now since the horrible thing. I mean, would you say you're in a good place?
Yeah, I mean, I still have like you can't look at my family and not say that I'm a very blessed person, right? And so yeah, Alyssa right now she's in a master's of social work program and so she's working on her next phase in life. Uh Emily's sisters, they're busy in school learning who they are and this experience for them has been something that's made them very strong and resilient. They definitely have a very strong sense of who they are and how to express that. And I love that because that's something I'm learning. I'm 43 years old and my 17-year-old's given me tons of examples about how to just like stand up for your own truth. And it's really wonderful. So
You had a really good line. Shoot, I didn't write it down. You said something like, I wonder if the dad I am today, shoot, you know what I'm talking about? If
yeah,
I
yeah,
be
yeah.
the same
Mhm.
dad I am today, if I hadn't have gone through this versus if I had, something like that.
Yeah. It was just this place where immediately after the shooting and you knew that this was going to impact you and I could automatically feel my whole world shift, right? It was like I was really worried about the dad I would become because this happened versus the dad I could have been if it didn't. And I wondered how that was going to impact my girls. And it's an impossible question to answer, but what's been nice is that I wasn't on that journey by myself, right? So we all went through this together in our own way. So their changes that happened because of this event and my changes that happened with this event, we were doing that in real time with each other. So
And you no longer live in Connecticut. You moved shortly after the tragedy. And you have been back though to the memorial. You begin the book talking about going to that memorial. Is it hard to go back? Do you want to go back? Do you care to go back? Is it just kind of a chapter that's closed at this point?
yeah, when the opportunity arises to go back, like going back for the trial or when the memorial was dedicated, those were great experiences to be able to. I love those Sandy Hook families, and yeah, we didn't live in Connecticut long. We didn't have a community, and they became the closest knit community that you could have, right? I mean, they understand things about my life that my immediate family members don't, right? And so getting a chance to reconnect with other Sandy Hook families is always wonderful, and getting a chance to go back to a place where before the shooting there was wonderful memories there. There were beautiful experiences that we had, and I'm now in a spot where I can go and I'm in a place where I can hold both at the same time. I can hold these wonderful memories of Emilie and things that we experienced, and I can hold the tragedy at the same time, and I can still feel at peace. And that just shows a lot of just progression of how grief works.
Right. Do you have a favorite memory with Emilie?
That's tough. So here's one thing. So it's hard to classify what one might be my favorite, but here's one that kind of really demonstrates who she was as a person. So there was this big snowstorm one night in Connecticut, and I had to get out and shovel. We had this stupid driveway that was like really steep, like and uphill, and so I was out there for hours and hours shoveling because I had to go to work the next morning. School wasn't going to be canceled, so I wanted to make sure Alyssa would be able to have a safe way out of the house to get the girls to school and stuff. So I missed dinner, I missed bedtime, I missed all that stuff because I was just out there shoveling. And when I came in the house, the light above our kitchen table was on, and in my place at the table there was a plate of food and my favorite drink. And it was obvious that that wasn't Alyssa that did it. It had Emilie written all over it. And that was just really touching because later I found out nobody knew about that. She had gone to bed and then realized, oh, dad didn't come in and like tuck me in. Oh my gosh, dad didn't get dinner. And so she got
Mm.
up and she put a plate together and left it there because that's how much when I talk about how much love that she had and how she liked to show it. And in that moment, what was interesting was because she had so much love in her heart and she knew how to express it and share it with others. I really struggle understanding what feelings I'm having, what emotions I'm having, and I really struggle with knowing how to express myself in that way and show people that I care about, that I love them. And
Mm.
that was something that she gave freely, and so that is one of the memories I go back to a lot when I want to feel close to her. And I just that's the thing I miss about her the most was because I got to be a part of that and feeling that love from her and what she was able to show me and teach me. So
Oh, that's very, very sweet. Thank you for sharing that.
mhm.
The name of the book is A Father's Fight, Taking on Alex Jones and Reclaiming the Truth About Sandy Hook by Robbie Parker. It's available now on ebook, or you can get the hard copy or soft copy. Is it hard or soft?
No, yeah, no, it's a hard copy and I did the audio for it too. So it's on
Okay.
Audible or Kindle or wherever you want to get it.
I mentioned that I've only read about 60 pages of Robbie's book. That was yesterday when we recorded the interview. As of today, I'm up to nearly 160 pages. It's that good. And I would encourage you to pick it up. Again, it's called A Father's Fight, Taking on Alex Jones and Reclaiming the Truth About Sandy Hook by Robbie Parker. My thanks to him for chatting with me. My thanks to you for watching. I really appreciate everybody tuning in every Thursday. We'll be back next week for another Courtroom Insider. I'm thinking we might do either next week or in the coming weeks a Q&A. Ask me anything about Daybell, Kohberger, any of the other cases that we've talked about here. And also, if you want me to look into a case or you know of a guest that might be good to have here on Courtroom Insider, please comment. Here's how you can reach me. You can follow me at Facebook, Instagram. I'm on X. There's our YouTube channel, East Idaho News. My family YouTube channel is Meetin' the Eatons. Message me any of those ways. You can even call our newsroom, and I might not be here, but leave a message because I'm always looking for interesting things that maybe other media haven't covered or things that we could maybe dive deeper into here on Courtroom Insider with your support. Again, thank you so much for being here. Hope you have a great night. Have a great weekend. I'm Nate Eaton. See you later.